to seeing how we do this year. It would be nice, wouldn't it, Conwy, if we didn't come joint second this year?
It would, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah, it would be really nice. But we'll see, won't we?
Yeah.
We will see. So on that note, could I ask during the judging, I think you will get muted, but could I also ask you to turn off your cameras while we're going through the judging process? You can come back in again afterwards when we have a break. But we found that it does help with the bandwidth. Occasionally we have bandwidth issues, and if everybody turns their camera off, it does help a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be wonderful. So Ian, if we could then
Gradually disappearing.
Oh, I know. Trouble is when that happens, I lose track of where people are on the screen, and I'm yes. So
Paul's doing the presentation.
Oh, Paul, I beg your pardon, Paul. When you're ready.
Before we start, can I sort of just say a little bit?
Of course.
Yeah. I don't think any of you will know who I am, right? So I just thought I'd say a little bit. I'm a member of Edmonton Camera Club in North London. I joined there in 1996, but I've had 12 years away at Harlow. But that's 20 miles, and I decided I'm not used to living so much with distances like you people in the country, because I live in London. So we now go to the club that we were at first, which is just 2 miles away. I don't, as you can perhaps hear, have a London accent. That's because my hometown is on the borders of Birmingham and the Black Country, and I probably don't have that either, but you might hear the odd word that is a bit strange. Right. I think my accent's got lost somewhere along the M1. Sort of photography that I like. I do like sport, but I don't get that much opportunity to do it. I like taking the moment, something that is captured a second in time, that, you know, has come and gone, a landscape, nature, travel, sport, anything like that, because I've captured a moment that hopefully nobody else will get. Okay. Oh, and I am an ambassador with Paper Spectrum, and I did give the 10% discount code to Pat, I think, a few weeks ago.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Right, should we have a run through?
Yes, please.
Okay, so first image is get off my post.
Oh dear. I've not made a good start. I'm trying desperately to get rid of the bar at the top. Here we go, which I've done. And then I wanted to just move, that's it, got it. Move that little speaker bar down and out of the way. Okay, I'm there. Right, not familiar. I know what to do exactly with Zoom. Sorry, that's not against WebEx. I'm sure I'd get used to it, but just it's the familiarity. Okay. Can I first of all say that when I first had a very briefest look when these images came in a week or so ago, I was very impressed with all of them, and I thought I am really going to enjoy looking at these more closely. And I think it's really nice to judge somewhere that is away from North London and East Anglia, where I'm used to, because I perhaps will notice a few things that are familiar to me. So it is really good to see such a good, high quality set of images from all three clubs. So this one, Get Off My Post. It's really good title, and it sort of gives us, it's an action shot. It's one of those things that I said I liked, capturing that moment. I quite like the angle, and the post is at an angle as well. Don't know whether you took it quirkily at that post or whether it is a post that's half sort of falling over. Wonderful background that is not distracting at all, but has some tonality in it. So it's not completely solid, you know. And I do like that there's a few hairs coming out of the mouth of the one on the left. Yeah, well, maybe not out of, but behind possibly. And so that really shows the quality of the image. And then there's the separation of the wing on the one on the right. They've both got catch lights in the eye. So whether you use flash or whether that was just a happenstance with the sunlight at the time, I don't know, but it really does sort of, it makes the eye come to life a little bit. It's really good feather detail throughout. And this one gets a 9. I'm marking out of 10, yeah?
Yep.
Because if I say 9 and you're marking out of 20, you go, really? So yeah, we're doing, yeah, good.
Yep. 1 exposure, 2 events.
Yes. We can just about see a key line around here, but it's quite faint, but we can see just there. It says 1 exposure, 2 events, but I'm a bit naughty because one of the few images that gave me the metadata, because not many did, was this one, and it said 2-second exposure. So that was a confusion, yeah. And I think we've got an arrow going into the light bulb, and I think maybe the point of the arrow has made a connection with the element within the light bulb, and that in itself has created this fire effect, this trigger, which looks as though it's coming through the glass as well. So maybe there's a hole on that side as well, but certainly we've got the cracked element on this side. I think the one thing for me is that I would love the arrow on the right hand side just to be a little bit brighter, yeah. But for capturing, you know, a little bit more exposure, and I would do that by just in putting a grad across and then changing the exposure on the right hand side only. But the element of perhaps surprise to the viewer to make them want to look at this more closely, because this is a different image, yeah. It is quite intense, yeah. The lines, the 3 lines that are radiating off from that light, you know, that fiery light on the left hand side, that sort of really drags our eye in as well. And the whole sort of mystery that's involved with this it's almost like shooting the apple on the head, but this was slightly different. As a member of our club does lots of unusual things, and I think you've got a member, whichever club it is, who obviously enjoys this type of photography as well. This is also a 9.
Heather.
So the word of the title, Heather, involves everything, doesn't it? It involves the the crop where she's standing, the colour of both of her garments, and maybe even her name. Yeah. So I think it's been interesting that you've sort of captured in one word 3 elements potentially within this image. Quite like the idea of the hair perhaps floating, maybe being blown in the wind. It's potential that she's picked it up and it's dropped a little bit. And I quite like the space that she's filling within the frame. The expression on her face looks, it's a little bit false, and that pose that she's got isn't quite so natural as it is to make the viewer feel comfortable with the image. That's how I find it. I do like the background though. Everything's sharp as it should be, and this one is an 8.5.
The heads in the clouds.
There is an awful lot of street art in London, where I live, and it'll change. You go one week and you think, oh, I'll go back and take another photograph of that, and it won't be there. Somebody will have drawn over the top of it. And I think the idea with heads in the cloud is, if we're looking, what I see in this, and of course we may all see something different, but on the drawing or the painting on the left of the side of the wall, the cloud above it almost fits in as though it's the rounded extra part, a little bit more with hair and everything, the rounded part of the head above that we can see because the roof is stopped. Yeah. So I feel as though the clouds have taken over to complete the head, and maybe that's the title that you've got. But then, of course, we've got 2 what appear to be clergy, and maybe you could think that they too have their heads in the clouds as well. So it's sort of, on one side, you're actually taking a photograph of somebody else's artwork, unless you're duly talented. And so you've really got to capture every element within the scene that you've got. And so I think the extras that you've done to this are the 2 people walking by. That gives an element of scale, of course, as well. And then that cloud that completes the head. So I think your part of this image does come across. And that's an 8.5.
Stop and go reflections.
Within a lot of towns that have walls of mirrors for, externally, you can, at the right time of day, make quite interesting, I should say, patterns, but there's a creativity, and it's quite possible that a couple of hours later, when either the sun wasn't quite right or the clouds weren't quite right, this image would not be as it is now. And then, of course, you've got to position yourself in that place that is going to give a pleasing image. I do like the fact that on the left-hand side, the more with the zebra crossings or the stripes for certain, was very uneven. They do look like zebras stripes. I like the fact that you've got a line along the bottom. Yeah, that white striped line right across the bottom, acting as a base. And then almost we can work our way around. We miss it a little bit on the bottom right hand corner because that car sort of gets in the way. And we can work our way around, zigzag and up to, it's almost like snakes and ladders, isn't it? Around. And then on the other side, every individual image or window is a different image because it's reflecting what's behind. But I can't help feeling that, like, where are we? The first row, which is very central of windows, the picture at the top and the one third down are really quite similar, right? So it's either been put in, right, which is a lot of work, or that window is just tilted very slightly differently to create the image that you see here. Yeah, I'm wondering if these have been put in to make your pattern, right? Because they don't really sort of reflect true. But that apart, forget the trueness of it or whatever. You're going to tell me it was a straight shot. The idea behind this, the sort of metropolis picture, the city centre comes across really well. And I like this image. Now then, would you like me to hold back images or shall I just give marks as I go along?
It's entirely up to you.
Oh, let's hold back then. That creates the tension. It's not very good for the markers necessarily. So we'll hold this one back.
Roses.
I think the art of flower photography is quite a skill, and it sounds easier than it is when you come to do it, right? So what we've got here is a vase that is almost drifting into the background on the right, but it is there, right? So the darker side, where the light has got to work its way around on the left, is just that little bit more detail. And that gives that vase shape and form. Then the very subtle pinks, now of course that could have been the colour of the rose itself that you chose, but I wouldn't want a red one. I'd want that subtle pink. And I'm going to say, I don't like rules, but it's got 3 in. And people seem to think that odd numbers work well. And I think within nature, certainly petals come in odd numbers, so that works well. And then we've got just a few dropped on the floor with a hint of a little bit of lace as well. Quite like the background. Not sure whether that was organised within the picture or dropped in later. I'm guessing it was done at the time. And I like the fact that the edges of this are very slightly darker, maybe a vignette to hold those in, but it does just work well to have that extra little bit of detail around the edges so that we can enjoy the softness and that of the vase. The leaves are well delineated, and quite like that I see the back of them because that's where a lot more detail of the leaves are. And I would like to hold this one back as well.
Great Orme Kestrel.
So Great Orme is in North Wales, but that doesn't mean to say it's Conwy. It could have been someone who's been there. It doesn't really matter where this kestrel is, because it's an absolutely cracking shot. In flight, that real shine in the eye, so the head just slightly turned towards us, which was fortuitous. So we get not quite a profile, but just a little bit of a turn there. The details underneath the wing are potentially, that's where a shadow would fall. Yeah, so that's been handled very well indeed. And the moment of capture, because at any one sort of fraction of a second time later, that wing would be covering its eye. The two wings wouldn't be quite together. So I don't know how many you took of this, right? But this one works very well indeed. I had wondered at one point that do we need as much at the bottom, right? Because it's an awful lot of empty space. But because this animal, this bird is flying, and I think quite often they fly high, it is a good depth between the base of the image and the bird itself. And you might have worked out, I'd like to hold that one back too. I'm glad it says Jay with young blue tit, because I don't know as I could have worked out that that was a blue tit. I mean, I think the feathers are quite of that ilk. Yeah, and you know, I love the extra feather that's like in the air, because I think this is the jay doesn't like her post or his being taken by this young bird. And the moment of capture is that startled look on the young bird and that sort of almost dogged determination look in the eye of the jay. If I'm looking at the background, I like the dappledness of the background on the right hand side. Do find that it's a little bit pale on the right hand side, but that's how the light is, I understand. Yes, I know, but it just a little bit more dappled across there. This is not a nature competition, so you could have fiddled and fudged, but only because my eyes, it's a very strong white area in my eyes going towards that, perhaps more than the action. But I do find the action quite amusing and also good to capture a moment in time. That's a 9.
Misty Sunrise, Richmond Park.
You'd think I'd have been to Richmond Park, wouldn't you, by now? But I haven't. I've lived in London for 41 years, but I've not been that far south, as I would call it, as I live in the north. I think this is a very good example of morning mist, because we've got that, you know, where the warmth of the day across the cold of the water, the cold water comes up and we can see that in that long line across the picture. We've got 3 ducks. It's a nice number, isn't it? 3. And I think that the one tree that does dominate is the one that is more in focus, but the other trees at the background do have that sort of supporting role, quite like the gentle yellows within that image, colours that come with early morning, and so just not too much the water has not been too smooth. You know, some people like to completely smooth water. I like the fact that here you've got a few ripples. You might well have had to have a long exposure to get this picture, but I do quite, on the right hand side in particular, like those ripples as well. This is an 8.5.
Living in Fear.
This is interesting because I think in the times that we've been living for the past, what is it now, 15 months or so, the news has covered care homes and elderly quite a lot. Now, I have no idea whether that's where this person is, but it does make me wonder if he might be in a care home. And I think as one gets older, and even when you don't, perhaps a little dementia can creep in. And the story that you've given here, I think really does tell that sort of living in fear, because not knowing what's happening, not remembering what's happening, if that's the case, I don't know, it does come across strongly. It's again, we've got these bars. I think this is through a window, and if it is a care home, then that was a moment when that was the only time that you could have perhaps seen your elderly relatives, was to be through a window. Now, I must say, I did not go to my dad's care home and do that. I'm judging. The phone will do, but I could, fully understand. And I like the idea of the hand. And we can see that once, and maybe still, but certainly once, he was married because of that ring on the third finger. So I think that comes across well. And I would like to hold that one back, please. So the snowmobiles are really giving us a great sense of scale of this image, because, I know they're sitting down, right? But when you think of the huge expanse, and I think Iceland is a great place to go to get expanse, right? And in colder weathers and such like. So we've got almost a plateau behind the snowmobilers. Is that a word? And I love the delineation of the black areas within there, perhaps a little bit of gravel or some black dust within the snow that's creating that fall over the top. Reminds me a little bit of Game of Thrones. And then I like the two, one's a lot smaller than the other in the foreground, sort of hillocks. And so the image works very well. And I don't think it would work as well without those snowmobiles, right? And I do like the fact that the people are not like spaced out exactly the same. If some are going a little bit quicker, one's getting left behind. So that in itself works for me. This one is a 9.
There's a 9. The Shadow of the Cross.
So I understand the title, and it is because we can't see the cross. It's up there somewhere, presumably the feet and the body that we can see. It's above there, and so a really high sun, middle of the day type shot, and we've got that cross on the wall. So I like the cross, but I do feel I'm missing a little bit from the rest of the tableau, from I've got the lady with her hands in prayer. I've got only half of somebody else, perhaps leaving water or doing something there. And then, of course, I don't have the head of this figure, presumably Christ, on the cross. Now, I suppose your title is The Shadow of the Cross, but I'm felt that I'm missing something. I feel lacking because I can't see the other parts of the scene. Now, maybe I should know in my head that, of course, that's what it'll be, and so I should put it in, right? But it isn't in the scene, and within the pictures that are in tonight's competition. I don't feel this one is quite as strong, although I do like sort of technical qualities of light and shade that you've got in the image. This is an 8.
Eight.
Yes.
Seeing red.
So we there used to be a chap at Edmonton Camera Club who has, he's not with us any longer, but he was very good with his still life and lighting. And so in order to get rim light around your bottles, you need sort of specific lighting with reflectors at certain angles and everything. So I know that. And I can see where you're going with this. I like the fact that we've got the stem of the glass hidden, and the fact that it's red wine in there is the title, Seeing Red. However, I can't see the red tops of the bottles as well as I might like to, right? And I really would like to see that. Now, you can't increase the exposure on the whole thing because that's not going to work. So it really just has to be on the tops of those bottles. And I think, again, with a grad just over the top, you would be able to just increase the exposure a little bit. You know, it's just a fraction. So I can see a little bit more detail because you're saying seeing red, and I can't see the red of the tops of the bottles. And I guess you're thinking of the wine, but if those tops are red, then I want to be seeing those as well, right? There is a very gentle key line around here, around the edge. Maybe that could have been red as well, but it's not as strong as it perhaps needs to be. I think the, who is it? I don't know whether it's the PRGB Awards actually do it on a background of dark grey, their images, as opposed to black, so that if you have got a black coming up to the edge, you can then see where the edge of the picture is. I mean, I've got grey around the sides of this, but within the inside of that orange line, I've got it's just black to the side. So sometimes it's a little bit tricky to see where the image as taken finishes and the background starts. However, this is an 8.5.
Eight and a half.
Yep.
Dandelion.
Oh, do you know what? At the moment, every time I go out in the garden, I think dandelions again. So I cut the grass today, so there's no dandelions out there. They're gradually being taken over by buttercups, though, so I have to be careful. And I think an awful lot of people will go, oh, no, we don't want this, and they throw it away, right? But here you've been perhaps very careful about losing some of the seed heads and keeping others. And I think, I mean, I like the image. It's an insight into a part of nature that a lot of people will just ignore. And you really have got in close. Like the blue around the outside, it's a contrast against this sort of greeny yellow that we've got from the inside of the flower. At the bottom right-hand corner, there is one almost errant seed head that is sticking up a little bit. Now, I had to work out, do I like one being a little bit different to everybody else, all of the other seed heads, or does it get in the way and jar? It jars a little bit, I came to the conclusion. Maybe if you were fine-tuning it, you could, with a pair of tweezers, no doubt, take out that seed head as well, because I think it's just a little bit too much white just towards the bottom right-hand corner. But I do like the idea, and that one gets a 9.
Coffee and ketchup.
And I think it's something that at the moment a lot of people are wanting to do. I must say, having spent so long not going into places, I find it strange that I can, and a little bit apprehensive. You know, I've spent so long not doing things that I've got to sort of relearn how to do it. But backs to you, it doesn't matter because you've captured the essence of what's going on. They're huddled together. You definitely captured that. And I like the fact that the light has caught the glasses of the lady on the left. Yeah, the windows open and we can see across the road really clearly. Now, quite often when we're taking a picture indoors, what is on the outdoors, especially if it's a bit sunny, is going to be a little bit too bright. So you've controlled how this works very well indeed. Then the other sort of part of it is the title says coffee and ketchup, and that's really the bottom third of the picture. But this image would not be the same without that window, that shape of the window. And it really, it's a very interesting shape that you've got quite proportion quite well, and some good symmetry within that image. Is this an 8.5?
The Kitchen Maid.
There's oldie worldy. I quite often like going to natural trust properties or English heritage and finding the tableau, the scenes here, such as this, that we could take. Potentially, this could well be a studio setup as well, and not so much that you found it. I quite like the direct look that she has and the shading and the colours, and I'm not sure where one edge finishes. I'm pretty sure it was not this wide when I looked at it earlier. But I think you've gone for a very moody feel. I wouldn't have minded if it was a little bit brighter. I think that would have worked as well, just to give us a little bit more detail. But maybe you wanted to say that you felt as though she was in the shadows. I quite like the holding of the onion, I think it is, and a few other vegetables, and so that the title does make sense with all of the extras that you've included. 8.5.
Eight and a half. Wool Carderby.
Do you know, originally you think B, and then you think, I mean, a long time ago when you were learning, oh, this is a bee and this is a wasp, etc. And you don't realise how many bees there are, right? The types of bee that are. So this is a wool carder, which is interesting because I know that in the industry, so the woolen industry, you'd card your lamb's wool to get rid of all the grot and dust. So I don't know what this one does. Maybe it does it with its feet because they look a little bit prongy. But we've got really close up on this. So we can't see all of it because your depth of field isn't going to allow that. And there might have been something in the background that you wanted to avoid. But we've certainly got the three, as it were, the front legs plus one more because we're on the side, and a very good rendition of the head and the eye, both eyes. So the hair detail does work really well on this. I like the position. You know, it would have been nice to have just a tiny bit more depth of field. I wonder what would have come of that. But I think if we do, we're ending up with being distracted by the sharp leaf that it's on, and maybe one or two other things in the background. But certainly the head and those front furry legs, who'd have thought, have come across very well indeed. That's a 9.
The Detective and His Client.
I really like the monochrome on here. The shine that the lady has got, the attitude that she has, and that might be down to her. And then in the background, this is he's perhaps the detective is trying to suss her out to see what she is telling the truth about these things that she's asking him to find out and stuff like this. So it's he's a little. It looks to be a little bit suspicious of her, but in actual fact, he's the detective. So that's an interesting. Love the fur, the detail that's come over there. Like the fact that the cigarette smoke is within a dark background area of the picture, so it really shows up well. And the Venetian blinds just add an element that is, I think, needed, because otherwise it's a totally black background. So I'd like to hold that one back, please.
Through the Rain.
There's quite a few people are beginning to put images together with a textured background. This actually looks as though it's got a textured foreground. I remember doing things in the darkroom where you'd sandwich two negatives together and then take several minutes to expose because it was quite dark. And it has a feel of this about it. The raindrops are really quite sharp, and I'm pleased that you haven't got one over the eye by the looks of it. You've got one that's really close to the eye on our right, her left. I wonder, I might just try to get rid of that spot, you know, that raindrop on there. I think the technique has worked well in that you merged these two images, but I'm not too sure as it works as an end image. Perhaps I'd like more person to come through, more light on the person, so I can see a little bit more of her body and not just her face. It looks as though it's a face hovering in the air. Very central as well, but you know, that's the idea. I take it. Very sharp raindrops, and I think that's a good idea as well. But like I say, I feel as though she's popping in the face, but not in the body, and I'd like to see just a little bit more of that. However, 8.5.
Eight and a half. Foggy Ding Dong Tin Mine.
I wonder if this is a colloquial name or the actual name. You know, is one for the locals, is it, or is it one for sort of what it is actually known as? So Tin Mine says Cornwall to me, and there's a great history around it, and I don't know that history in great detail at all. But I think what you've got here is quite a moody image. We've got the sort of the fog coming up, but also you've got the sun rising up, and that element of yellow, so it's not halo, but around the outside of the sun. I think that's where it shows that it's a little bit foggy as well. It's not too foggy because we have got some detail. We've got the detail of the tin mine, the tops of the houses here, and a little bit of foreground interest with the trees that are there. I don't find it so exciting, and I do wonder, do I need the paler area at the top of the image, that yellow? It's getting on towards white, but maybe it's on my screen, it's about 1 centimetre down from the top. That would, I don't know as that would be, is quite necessary. But it's definitely a moody image. This is an 8.
Eight.
Yes.
Marbled white in profile.
The delicacy of this butterfly, just looking, yes, it is a butterfly, comes across very well indeed. And it almost looks a very pale image, perhaps a too pale an image, but the marbled white is, as it says, white. And you've got very pronounced and well detailed definition on the wing, or wings, which is the other one as well, on this animal. We've got some good definition on the body as well, and at least one of the antennae is shot. And then background, and I'm guessing this might well have been just muted a little bit. And if you did mute it down, the background, and I think that's has been done well and for good reason, because that in turn highlights the white of the butterfly, and that is the dominant part of the image and is definitely your main subject. So I think and also we've got an interesting key line around the edge, which is I don't think it was needed, but it's in tune with the rest of the image, and it's just one color. It's quite wide, but because it's a color from within the image, it does work well. We'll hold that one back, please.
Hold back. Wildmoor Heath.
It's taking us back to winter days, and after today, when it was so sunny, this is quite strange. I love the way that snow will fall onto a tree. It depends on the direction of the snow as it fell, of course. But in turn, what was a quite thin sort of skeleton of a tree now becomes really quite thick and covered. And it's almost as though it's got leaves on again. You know, it's that thickness, but it is the snow that has traced itself onto the black branches and bark of the tree. It's quite one-sided, but I know why you wanted to include so much on the right-hand side, because that's where the sun is, and that's sort of just an extra element within the image. As well as on the right-hand side, we've got an awful lot of snow covered on the railings, and it looks like somebody's been along there and scooped a little bit up, maybe to make snowballs, but we've got nobody in sight at the moment. This one's a 9.
Low level flying.
You know, I've had a go at this, and I think I deleted all of them. So they are, I don't know whether they can hover, right? But if they are in flight, they are pretty quick. He looks as though his feet are just, they're not as streamlined with the rest of his body. So maybe he is just coming into land. So potentially he's may slow down just a tiny bit. I like the fact that he's absolutely looking at your lens, because if I move to the right, he's still looking at me. If I move to the left, he's still looking at me. This owl, I don't know, is it a little owl? I don't know. Anyway, an owl, right? Like the fact that the background is just that little bit subdued, just that little bit out of focus, but there's still a little bit of detail. I don't know whether you fuzzed it out, technical word, the bottom or not. There's one grass, that's the Birmingham grass. On the right hand side at the bottom, if you come along, there's a lot of upright ones, and about oh, I don't know, sort of a tenth or an eighth of the way across. There's one that goes off at a diagonal to the left. I might have cloned that out because I like the straight ones, but that jars a little bit. Yeah. The other thing I wonder is he's very much right over, the owl is very much over to the right hand side, and I wouldn't want to put him centrally, but would it hurt if we took a little bit off the left hand side, making his eyes on a third of the image? Yeah, because at the moment he's probably more on he might be on a third. I think I often use the golden third, you know what I mean? So just a little bit inside the third, but it was just a thought. These are just ideas that I come as I look, but I do love the image, and for that reason I will be holding it back.
We are halfway now, so I guess we probably want to stop for a break.
You can do. Can we do one more? Because then I can turn the page later.
Okay.
Or not? No?
That's fine.
Because I've got 24 on one side of my paper.
Okay.
And then I can turn over.
Bahamas bursts forth Harworth.
Interesting. I'm presuming that we've got Bahamas Locomotive Society, and then it says Haworth. I always associate Haworth with the Brontes, but maybe this is in the Bahamas. Nothing to do with the Brontes. The actual moment that you took the image was the absolute precise right moment to get the right amount of steam within this image. And it's almost cocooned the locomotive, because we've got the top, right and left with the steam. And I like the fact that the branches in the foreground on the right have really sort of been brought to life because of the white steam clouds in the background have sort of separated them from the other dark areas in the image, and so we've got the bonus of being able to see them a lot stronger. I quite like the bottom left hand corner has a track line coming out of it, so I don't know whether this was how you took it, but if not, then you've made a point of cropping it to that line, and I sort of applaud that. The shine on the engine, someone's been really busy and made them polish that nicely. And within the sun that you've got on that day, that has come over well. And that's another one I'd like to hold back, please. Okay, turn the page.
Holding that one.
Yep.
Right. Thank you very much. That was a good start.
They're good, aren't they?
Yeah, lovely images. So, and each club has only seen their own prior to this evening, so
Yeah.
It's good to see
It is. Yeah.
all the other images. Yeah, very good.
Incidentally, I'm not in a care home and I don't have dementia.
Who's talking?
Yeah, that just proves it, Barry.
I was going to ask what the care home's like.
Shouldn't say then it's not.
It's,
Well, it was a very good performance then in that case.
it was. I mean, it just, there's been so much talk over the past year or so that it really, you know, with so much, that it really did remind me that that it could well be that, but with the title that you gave, I've got to turn back again, Living in Fear. I think you can if you're confused, you know. So I think the title really helped to paint the story as well.
Yeah. Well done, Angela.
Sorry if I inferred it.
I'll forgive you.
It was a very, very strong image though.
Mm.
Right, Leslie, what are we going to do? Have a 10-minute break, or what do you want?
Yeah, I think so.
Convene at 5
We
to?
come, yep, 5 to 9. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can all stretch your legs, go and get yourself a cup of tea or something stronger if you wish. And we'll reconvene in a few minutes. Okay.
I'm going to have to apologise to people on YouTube. I forgot to start YouTube again, so they will have missed this one, unfortunately. That's a 9. Morning rush.
Now you see, living in North London, this is not what I would think the morning rush would be. And so it catches you unaware. You know, you hear the title and then you expect something else. And I like that about an image, that you're using something that is a familiar sound, a familiar title, and putting something to. I'm guessing this could be. There was Brighton, is it? There was one that was burned. Maybe this is here. I like the fact that it's not just the pier, that we've got these really bold, and probably not as tall as the pier, but given that appearance because they're quite close, poles, and no idea what they're for. But for some reason, it does set the scene. It gives us that extra element. And I've got the 4 poles. I've got the pier in the distance. And then I've got these tracks of sand, and there's a little bit of a time exposure here, I think, because there's a little bit of smoothness. The sky is a little bit of movement in it, but sufficient that you haven't taken it too far, sufficient that we've got some movement in the sand and the foreground, and it looks as though that morning rush is where the water has come in and it's just retreated. Could be the other way around, but that's the way I feel it is. I like the fact that the horizon is just a little bit above centre. I'm just going to measure it here. Or it might be centre. But anyway, it looks a little bit above centre. But because the rush of the sand and the movement in the sky balance one another up very well, I think the horizon looks perfect where it is. And this is a 9.
South Bank view.
So I'm familiar with this, right? There's right in, it's in the middle of the picture, there's sort of, it's called the walkie-talkie one. It's wider at the top than it is at the bottom. There was meant to be 2 of those, but I think they ran it, because walkie-talkies you usually have 2. I think they ran out of money when they were doing that. It's really good that we've got line of sight of St Paul's. There were certain rules with St Paul's that they can't build. You've got to have line of sight from certain places, and I don't suppose across the river is one, but there are certain roads that you can't build within that line of sight. And I don't know how many there are, but I know there is that sort of phenomenon as it goes. I find that this is almost heavy-sided on the right, because these buildings, the Oxo building and whatever that tall silvery blue thing is on the right, look absolutely massive compared to St Paul's. And I know St Paul's is big too, right? So because it's so far away, right, and so it does look just a little bit odd-sided. But I do like the fact that you come down to the river and it looks, maybe you're on a pontoon or a jetty, rather, like I can see a jetty here. So maybe you're on a jetty as well, but you could also have gone down. I think I've never seen it myself, but during like the 40s, 50s, 60s, people used to actually come and sunbathe on the sand at the side of the river, because it's tidal, so sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down. I wouldn't mind a little bit more detail within the right, so perhaps bring the blacks just on that right hand side to give us more detail. But I think because it's in shadow, but right underneath the bush, it's very blocky. Moving across the Thames to all these different silly named buildings, right? We then get to St Paul's, and right on the left hand side I'm finding that there's a white line of something, and I wouldn't mind just a little crop on that side to get rid of that tiny little bit there. But like the sky, potentially a longer exposure, so you've got that little bit of smoothness as the wind might have been blowing within that. 8.5.
Eight and a half. The Seven Sisters in winter.
Do you know, this is somewhere where I've not been, and it can't be that far away from me. Really can't. I've probably been down when I went across the channel, but not from this angle. This is quite a well-known angle. I've seen several images from perhaps a little bit further back, so you perhaps zoomed in a little bit on this one. I found that this lacks a little bit of clarity to me. Now, that's a sort of technical word. In Lightroom, there's a slider called clarity, right? And if you move that to the right a little bit, it tends to make the whites whiter, the blacks blacker. A sort of the thing that curbs might do, but different. It is slightly differently. And I did have a quick tweak myself with it, and in my opinion, it just added a little bit more punch. Maybe, of course, the author here wanted a little bit less punch, but for me, I would have liked just that extra little bit. I don't like the bird fly in it, because I feel that, is that on my screen? Should I wipe it off? Right? Maybe if there was more, maybe you could not clone it so much, but you can make a brush out of a shape, right? So you make a brush out of the shape of the bird, and then you could add a few more in. And I do appreciate the fact that coming out of the bottom left-hand corner is the edge of the beach. So that's working well. That's an 8.5.
Eight and a half. Aerial hoop.
So this looks as though we're in a theatre or a circus, or something where we've got spotlights. Certainly we can see the spotlight with a radiating light on the right hand side, and then one or two more on the left. Would I have got rid of the ones, a couple on the left? Are they getting in the way? It's debate. Yeah, like the fact that because of the long hair, that's falling down and creating, with the light that's been put on it, quite a few sort of strands of sort of golden flax. Quick drink. I can feel my mouth going dry. And I think it looks as well to me that she's swinging on here because of the angle of the hoop that she's holding. So a fast shutter is needed, and then you're indoors. So lighting was not so good for you. I feel as though I want to do a question of sport and sort of turn and look at this upside down, so I can see her face the right way up. But I appreciate the shape that we've got here. It's almost like the triangle, the legs of the Isle of Man, right? And so I can appreciate the difficulty that you had to take this. This is 9.
Nine. Timothy.
Oh yes. Do you know what? It looks as though he's got smoke coming out of his ears. I'm perhaps assuming that it isn't, and it's that perhaps he looks like he's a railway buff, doesn't it? And he's stoking the engine and things like this. But it does look as though, what with a cigarette in his mouth, that he is making smoke circles with it. Perhaps I just have a strange, weird sense of humour. I like the texture and the detail that is within the beard, the clothing, the zip shows up well, the folds in the fabric, the buttons, everything has a good detail and texture to it. And I don't know what his hat is made of, but from the looks of this, it's leather, and I can see the folds and the shine and the hide that has made that up. And then we've got this absolute direct look from his eyes, that he's got direct contact with the lens of the camera, because if I move left and right, he follows me. He's really central, and I like that. That's worked very well indeed. I'll hold this one back, please.
Admiration.
The idea of the boldness of the car in the foreground acting as a foil, as it were, for the car and the people, the two guys in the background. I don't know whether we're at a museum or in a large hangar. I think if it was a museum, maybe there would be more cars here, but maybe not. The other thing I like is that the colour, and you probably didn't have much control over this, but the colour of the floor is that warm glow, goldy colour, yellowy, and then the light has got this yellowiness in the background of it, in the light at the back. So when the lamp lights up, you've got the yellowy glow. That's working well. And I like the fact that the grate on the front of the car, you can tell I'm not a carver, is absolutely parallel to the edge of the picture. Yeah. So I think by the time we get to the people in the background, they're not quite as sharp as they might be. But it's all the capture of the shape and your choice of what you include and indeed what you don't include. And I like the fact that both wheels of the car in the background, we can see a complete circle of white. We don't see all of the front of the car, but I think it was important to keep the wheel circle complete. I'll hold that one back as well, please.
Scooter sur le pont.
So this looks as, I don't know whether you can get electric scooters, but it doesn't look as though she's putting a lot of foot power into this to move along. There's part of me thinks this might not have been the best thing to change it tomorrow. No, I don't know what it's going to look like, and maybe there were some jarring colours that you didn't want to get in the way, but it doesn't come across as strongly as it perhaps could do. And I think you've definitely got good whites and you've definitely got good blacks, but there's an awful lot of mid-tone greys, especially in the background there. The other thing is the top left-hand corner. Now that I've seen it, I'm being dragged away to the top of that, and it's just that pale area. So we can either extend the building by another floor, right, or crop it off either across the top or down the side, and then there's a few above her head to behind her head, and on top there's a few sort of whiter areas which I probably would have cloned, because they're a distraction and they're taking us away from the girl. I do like the rim lighting that we've got on her face and her right arm though. That was an 8.
Isolation.
Mm. So it's interesting to know where you were when you took this. And it's the sort of thing that we've begun to say, especially like say with Antiques Roadshow or something, and they've got a drone because of the angle that they can get. But I think, and it may well be a drone, but it's given us a quite different angle to this image. Now, I'm fairly certain that when you I don't have a drone, but if you use it, you can still have control of what you're taking, and you can see what you're taking with your gear stick or whatever you've got on the ground. So I like the boat's position, right? Sort of a little bit off center, and then the shadows of the mast across between two darker patches on the sand. So that's working well. And then just the ripples and the lighting, the time of day when it took this has created textures and details within the sand. The sand is really yellow. It's a bit sulfurous, so it's a bit of a strange colour. But sometimes the lighting, the sun will just glance across it and give it a strange colour. But I do like the pattern and the blue in the top left-hand corner as well. I'd like to hold this one back, please.
Hold. Cheetah with cub, Masai Mara.
It's good that they're both looking in the right direction, because you feel that if this is mum, she's teaching the little one what to look out for, and that the little one is paying attention. It's not always with little ones. So I like that sort of concentrated look on both of them. Very sleek animal, built for running. Certainly the adult is. The little one's got a way to go, hasn't it? The background, this is not a criticism, but blends in very well with the colour of the animal. That's the way it's meant to be, right? And the position that you may not have had any control over. I'll just walk over here and get a different position. But I quite like the tree branches that are behind the head of mum. Yeah. So I think sufficiently depth of field is sufficiently that is thrown out, and we get the idea that the Masai Mara is definitely there behind them. So I think it tells quite a good story, and I'll hold that one back too, please.
Hold. Amelia.
I think this has a lot of impact. The eyes really do draw you in. They are, I think they've been made up, to draw you in. That the darkness of the eyes, the darkness of the eyebrows, the shine that we've got on the eyes, that definitely draw us in. She's very comfortable having her photograph taken. I like the slight slant so that her eyes are slightly on the diagonal, and that works very well. The fact that we've cropped the top of her hair, I don't think matters because we haven't cropped it across her forehead. It is within the hairline, so that's fine. The whole of her face is within the frame, like the lace work that she's got as well. That's perhaps not as sharp as it might be, but certainly the face is crisp, like the hair as well. Don't know whether some lighting was used to sort of glance across the hair to give that a little bit more sort of sharpness and form and texture within the hair. But I think this is a very powerful image, and I think she really does draw you in. And it's a combination of her, but also how the photographer has captured this lady, and then created the image from her. Hold that one back, please.
Harold, what's up there?
Yes, that's quite sweet, isn't it? Do you know what? It looks as though that branch that he's sitting on has been put there, right? Because it looks a very odd angle to be natural. So I don't know whether somebody has added that in. Oh yes, we'll go back and have a picture. Red squirrels, don't see red squirrels where I live very often. It's a sort of Scottish thing, maybe other places as well, but I don't know of that. I quite like the catchlight in his eye. He's looking up, so we're wondering what's up there, but I'm really pleased that you've given us a little bit of space for him to look up to see. He probably heard something and just wondered what it was. Quite dappled lighting in the background, so that sort of come across quite naturally. And I'm glad I've got some element of the tree and the bark as well. This one's an 8.5.
Eight and a half. Canal life in lockdown.
Wonder where this was. I'm often amazed the amount of canals that are or were and still are a little bit across the country. There's Birmingham, where I lived, is a sort of the central element of a cross that goes across the country, you know, going up from Liverpool or all the way down to Kent, sort of Grand Union stuff. And then, of course, within London, we've got the Regent's Park Canal, which is quite a nice walk. And this reminds me a little bit of that, not exactly, but in the fact that it's in amongst quite an urban situation. And of course, in Birmingham, it would have been in the urban situation because the canal boats were used to take all the metalwork that people had done in the Black Country out to other parts of the country and indeed to docks and the world. So you've sort of captured all of that for me. We've got the old industry, we've got old bridges I can see, and then we've got 3 narrowboats here. Quite often living accommodation, and they don't necessarily move these days. And we can see that somebody's stoking up. They've got a little bit of a fire going on. Quite like the fact that you've included 2 of the main, well, I don't know. They under the arch, there's 2 columns, sort of left and right. I like that balance there. Yeah, that's an 8.
Eight. Beautiful bark.
My husband would be envious of this. He loves wood, and I think so. This is at 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Okay, what's 7 images? Not a triptych, is it? It's a septych. Actually, there's a word for more than 4, and I think it's mono. Is it monotych? No, hang on. Forget. Multitych. There's something there. Like the fact that you've got, it looks like silver birch on the right, and I haven't a clue for the rest. But I like the ideas that you've just taken a section and then created that pattern in the shot. Interesting one on the left. And I quite like the greeny one, a little bit of lichen being on the central one. I find that the one on the right is a little bit pale, if that is silver birch, which it sort of looks like. Would it have been better swapping it with the brownier one? Or maybe you're going from dark to pale. But I just find that a pale one on the edge is not quite aesthetically pleasing for me anyway. This one gets an 8.5.
8.5. The Victorian.
Mm. Yes, he's certainly got the hat for it, hasn't he? And the large revere of the checked potential waistcoat. I think that might be because he's got his dark overcoat on the outside, and then the shirt and potentially a cravat. I can see correctly. He's got a bit of a scar. Obviously, he's been in. He's not such a great fellow and been in a fight or two, or so the makeup shows here. I don't know why the pipe inside of the pipe is red. It jars. I don't think it's necessary. And I can perhaps understand this. Oh, yes, it's a light. Well, I don't remember my granddad's pipe ever looking as dark as that. It looks like a clay pipe, doesn't it? Because it's quite white here. I wouldn't mind the greys being lifted just a little bit, maybe because it's Victorian, you want to show that it wasn't as great for the working class, for sure. It was a little bit grey, but I think certainly his face could be lifted just a tiny little bit more. This one's 8.5.
Eight and a half. Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Yes, he's looking a little bit. Do I have to hold it for how long? And what do you want me to do next? And actually, I'd rather go and get something to eat. Do you know? So we've got a little bit of a quizzicalness, and you've got the image in the glass in the mirror is the sharp one, and not the one of him looking. And it is maybe he's going to school, or maybe he's going out, because well, you wouldn't have a school waistcoat, or would you? He's certainly got a tie on. I think the only time I know little boys wear ties is when they're perhaps going to school. But quite like the look, and it's towards himself, as it were. Yeah, he's looking out of the corner of his eye, so we've got that sort of quizzicalness. But actually, it's a really nice picture of this young boy, and then we've added just that element of difference. Would it have been better if the figure on the Ellis on the left was sharp as well? Potentially, but having said that, it does delineate the difference difference between reality and the non-reality, and it's actually the non-reality is that's sharper. But I do like the idea. I did one years ago with Alice Through the Looking Glass, with a young girl, not Ellis. And I don't know whether that was a sort of a play on word for you. Anyway, this one gets a 9.
Nine. Contemplative.
This sort of takes me back to an older photograph, something that might be in someone's archives, or an exhibition, or it's like a plate photograph, and it had a sort of quality as well, which is, it's not amazingly bright, but we've got some bright areas on it that give the shape, the form of the face, and the body and the arm as well. So we've got window light that is helping here. The pose that she's got, it says contemplated, and it absolutely shows that. So it's always, do you have the title before you take the picture, or when you've got the picture, do you think of the title? It's usually the latter, but if you'd asked her to be that contemplated, then you're going to get this. Yeah. This is a 9.
9. Media City Mono.
Wow. This is quite a powerful image, isn't it? We've got this sort of leading line from the left-hand side, taking us towards what says BBC. No, I don't know. Is it Manchester way? Doesn't matter. I don't know. But it's a wonderful reflection. So it's been built in a magic place, hasn't it? Because we get some really good photographs from here. And there's a tiny little bit of ripple in the water, but hardly any. It's almost smooth, but the built-in windows and lights are just a little bit ripply. The water is a lot darker than I would expect it to be from the colour of the sky. You know, I know that water is going to be darker than sky because it always is, and sort of reflectant surfaces. But this one just comes across as just a little bit too dark for me. It almost isn't real. But if that is a particularly dark blue, right, because of some other reason, then it's going to be rendered dark when it goes to mono. So I can sort of see that. But I think as a striking image, it does come over very well. That's a 9.
Chester.
When I first saw the thumbnails of this, right, you have to imagine, therefore, it's really quite small on my screen. And I thought, my word, there's a hole in that dog, because the ball is practically the same colour as the grass. So anyway, I get a closer look. And I'm pleased to say that he doesn't have a hole in him, but he's got a tennis ball. And he absolutely is loving it, isn't he? It's like the girl running through the wind and her hair being trailing behind him. We've got his ears and his hair trailing backwards. You can tell he's at speed. I feel he's at speed because of the fur on his front is being blown backwards, as it were. And maybe that's a little bit of wind as well, because the longer grass is beginning to sort of look as though that perhaps is a little bit leaning to the right, so in the wind. Now, this is an interesting crop because you didn't have to have all that on the left-hand side, but you know, I think that's what makes the image, that particular crop, to show that Chester is in a completely open field. And what a wonderful place for a dog to go for a run. I'll hold that one back, please.
Held. Sunrise and Ripples.
I don't know, but there is a certain tree in the Lake District, right, that is situated right between like the two valleys and if it's not there, then somewhere else. Does seem to attract the photographer, right? That single lone tree, should we call it, with the reflection and the hills just dipping behind it in the background. So I think we've got all the elements of the good landscape photograph. Interesting what has formed these ripples. There's that advert on BBC where one of the pictures is upside down and you go, well, how can that work? And I don't know, maybe a bird has just gone, a duck has just dipped and gone underwater, and that's what has created those ripples. But it is odd that that's there, isn't it? I wonder what it was. It'd be nice to know, but we haven't got a clue. We haven't got anything that tells us to give us that idea. Whilst I like the sunrise effect, I do find that the colours and the mottled areas in the sky is almost getting in the way of that beautiful tracery of twiggery in the tree itself. And I personally think, as a consequence, it looks cluttered and I'm sure there's an awful lot of emotion that you had when you were there, especially if you had to get up early and to take the image. That this will mean more to you than it does to someone else who did not have that 360-degree exposure to when you were there. I do like the image though, so it will get a 9.
It's a 9. Black-headed gull diving.
It's interesting that how sort of many pictures you took to get this. I must say, I just changed to Olympus 4/3, and I have something called Pro Capture on it, which means you don't have to take lots of images. You can start taking pictures, and it will only it will keep taking them, but only on a rolling, say 8 or whatever you've put, so that you don't have to use up your card so much. And you can almost, so you can sort of take a picture before you've actually pressed the button, if you see what I mean, by just focusing. And maybe, I don't know, maybe this was with the help of that. If not, extremely good timing, because it looks like the beak has just about hit the surface of the water as you took the shot. I'm just wondering, is it very, very slightly squiff? And I would like maybe to rotate it ever such a fraction anti-clockwise, just a touch. It looks as though the bird is straight, but it doesn't look as though the water's straight. Yeah, that line of black circle in between the reflection and the bird itself. It's an interesting thing as well, isn't it, that we've got the underside and the undercarriage of the bird, but within that, the fantail is well defined, and also the underside of the wings, which we don't usually see, but that has been handled well. That's a 9.
It's a 9. So that's the end of all of them. There's 14 held. Do you want a slideshow light box? Any preference?
Light box is great. Can you get them all on? Because there's quite a lot.
Let's see. Yes.
Oh, lovely. Okay. I mean, I said at the beginning that I thought the standard was really high, and I think that's indicative of the marks that I gave. I don't think I went below an 8, so it could be close, you know, as we go. But I really did enjoy seeing these images, and such a variety as well. And when I'm judging, I'm sort of in the moment with one picture, and I tend to mark it on its own merits, and I don't compare it with another one. So this is why we've got all sorts of things here on the light box now. So I'll go through the 9.5s. Yeah. So the very first one, because that's probably easier for the markers, which is Stop and Go Reflections, is a 9.5.
Okay.
Yep, the rose next to it is, or roses, is also a 9.5. Low level flying, is that the one on the second row?
That one, the green one.
Yep, that's a 9.5. And then the train next to it is a 9.5. And I've got Timothy is a 9.5. And next to him, oh, you're keeping up really quick. The club I did the other day. We're really slow. And then admiration is a 9.5.
So you jinxed me.
Sorry. So
So
we,
I'm not sure what score I gave that. That should be 9.5. Yep.
it should. Because otherwise the adding up at the end won't work. The Masai Mara is 9.5. Okay, and the last one of the 9.5s is Chester.
Okay.
Okay, and so you can work out,
The rest are 10s.
yes,
Assume. So the Kestrel,
yep. The living
Living in
Fear.
Fear,
The detective,
yep.
Marble
Marble
White, Isolation, and Amelia. Chester didn't disappear when you said 9.5, though.
No.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it. There's quite a lot of 20s, but I think, overall the standard was really good, and I have to sort of credit where credit is due.
Well, thank you very much for some excellent critique,
Thank you.
Marilyn. Really enjoyed this evening. Are we going to have some authors to go with the 10s?
Yep.
That'll be very good.
So 10s are. Oh. Great Orton Kestrel by Tony Davies at Conwy.
He'll be pleased. Well done, Tony. He's not here, unfortunately, but well done.
Living in Fear, Angela Thompson, Penwith.
Well, can't you?
The Detective and His Client, Gary Pratt at Farnborough. Marbled White in Profile, Catherine Graham at Farnborough. Isolation, Chris Coyler at Penwith.
Well done, Chris.
And Amelia, Sharon Prenton Jones at Conwy. And that's the 10s.
Oh, that was 2 10s per club.
That's it, really.
Mm.
So, drum roll, the scores are. So first place gain's gone to Penwith, second to Farnborough, and third to Conwy.
Wow.
Much closer this year. Well done. Well done indeed, Penwith. Big clap for Penwith. Well done.
Yeah.
So
Marks to it, yeah.
last year Penwith whipped our hides, really. They were 10 points ahead of Farnborough and Conwy. So this year 2 points between each placing is much closer, and much too close to call actually before the results were given. So well done everybody. Super set of images. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks for that, Leslie. And maybe it's going to be the best of 3 next year.
Oh, well, we'll see. We're getting closer.
Perhaps
We're definitely getting closer.
we'll have to put at least some money on it, or maybe the first virtual or even a real round. We'll have to, see what we
Meet
can
up
do.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes,
Could I add my thanks to Marilyn for the judging? You obviously enjoyed the pictures. That was great. So they were very diverse. And thank you to Leslie for doing the organising again. So
Oh,
it's been a
you're
super
very
evening.
very
Thank you.
welcome. I've got a very good team behind me, so it makes it much easier. I just have to keep communicating with everybody. So yes,
Yeah, and thank you, Marilyn, from everyone down in the far west, and to everyone up in Wales and up in England.
So
yes, last year was our first international battle.
well, there you go. I will. I will be getting a trophy of some description. I feel that if we're going to continue with this, and I would love it to continue because it's great fun, there should be a trophy, but something I can put in the post. So Penwith, don't hold your breath too much, but hopefully you should get something arriving in the post at some point.
Well, that'll be really nice, and we'll make sure that everyone knows about it, and we'll get it in our program. So
yes, I think we've programmed it for a similar time next season as well. Pat's our program person. I will get the dates to you if I haven't already. We've two seasons rolled into one has just about finished my poor brain. So this is our very last evening of the current season, and we now get the committee, not just me, get a well-earned break until September now, because we haven't, apart from Christmas, we've just kept going since September 2019 really, because obviously that first bit was normal. It has been good fun. We've learned a huge amount, as have all the clubs, I'm sure, around the country. We're now Zoom, WebEx, or whatever your chosen means of communicating is, experts. We've all watched, no doubt, hundreds of webinars. I know I have. If I could only remember it all, I'd be absolutely amazing by now. And probably all looking forward to being able to take photos somewhere other than in our back gardens. So I wish you all a happy and healthy 12 months ahead and some good photography, and we look forward to seeing the results of all that next year. So
thank you very much. Thank you, Leslie.
And it's the 26th of May next year.
There you go, you heard it here.
All right.
Hopefully that will be okay for Conwy and Penwith as well.
Yeah.
Yes, the calendar looks clear at the moment.
We've just started planning the year after that, so it's I don't know, can't get my head around just about on the beginning of next season. I think that's as far as I can go. Okay, well, thank you very much. And could we just, before everybody disappears, say a really big thank you to Marilyn. It's a fantastic evening. Thank you very much, Marilyn.
I enjoyed it.
We'll put you on our Zoom list of judges who don't live locally enough to come and do us to judge for us on a regular basis. But we are still having a few evenings that are
several clubs have said
Zoomed. Well, unfortunately, we can't meet on the last Thursday of the month in our hall because somebody else uses it. So now we're able to. We've just programmed all our last Thursdays with Zoom meetings. So
that. Makes sense.
it's it's worked out well. We wouldn't have occurred to us to do that prior to COVID. So
Yeah.
it's there have been 1 or 2 benefits.
Yeah.
So
Marilyn will be welcome back, even though we didn't actually win.